Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning television producer Chris Cangilla. This episode recapping week 4 of May 2024. Chris, another week, some guests, and there is more and more, not just soiree talk, but there's some soiree action, too. There are steps being taken that ensure that probably the soiree, if not some kind of event, is happening at the Norton household shortly.
Well, we know who's driving it. It's Nikki. It has to be Nikki because, she's taking on the onus of trying to clean up a little bit, get that terrace ready, right?
Yeah.
Jim was kind of scolding her because she was using some dish soap and maybe one of those scrub daddies to clean some of the outdoor furniture. And he said it was making a minimal improvement. So maybe they got to do some power washing or something like that. Do you ever power wash your stuff? Because it does help, but Jim, may not have the ability or the power washer to do it. So you might have to hire
It helps.
somebody.
It's kind of something I like doing on a hot day.
It's rewarding, right?
Get it going. You see it. You see the reward as you're doing it. I usually listen to the show. Even if it's like a second or third time, I listen to the show while I'm doing it. The thing with, I understand Jim's hesitant. Like, how are you going to get, he's in a high rise, right? So how are you going to get a power wash guy with his leaky nonsense, huge things up all the way and on his terrace? That might be a little tricky. We know his windows don't hold water well. If there's some water coming in through the sliding doors, I don't.
I am a little curious of where the water does go when you're in the penthouse, but
they'll just go right off his balcony on like someone else's.
I don't know.
So that's how I kind of do want to get a power washer now, so it could be a whole show.
Absolutely.
Speaking of whole shows, I don't know if you caught this, but I did. I think it took me a couple listens. I think I heard most of Nikki and Jim's live stream. I love that they're just trying out new stuff on the YouTube channel. You got the kind of reality show Slice of Life. You got the video podcast. Now he said he enjoyed doing it, and he said they're going to do it on the road again. I liked that they're doing a live stream. You learn more, and you see Jim go in and out of character. Did you catch any of it?
I'm a very delinquent Jim and Sam fan. I didn't catch any of it. I did see that they did do some of it. I just been so swamped lately. Didn't get to catch much of it. But what would you say some of the highlights are? Did you learn anything new? What did you enjoy most about it?
New, yes. I don't remember exactly what it was. It's like I would watch it again. It was 2.5 hours. The thing I liked is they were taking questions. So Jim would just answer questions. Probably a lot of it's like what I heard before about probably his acting and some O&A stuff. But he would unprompted keep sliding in and out of characters in a way that we have not seen since O&A. So I would tell people to watch just for that. And
I love it. And it seems like, our episode we had with Nikki and Jim is our own way of taking some listeners and viewers' questions from us.
Directly. Yeah, very directly. That was great. Now getting to Sam now. And this, we all have little league stories. We've all coached. I'm coaching right now, assistant coach of a T-ball team. They actually improved a lot from it's kindergartners. They improved a lot from last year. We kind of had the same group of guys. It's been fun. Now Sammy is taking this on, and I think he escaped pretty unscathed. You have Sam, who's not a sports guy, wrestling guy, doing amazing in wrestling for himself. You could argue even as good as he's done in radio. And I love how this prompted. I'm just trying to picture Sam coaching, but then we get into the Norton Little League stories of old. Do you remember what the ones they just touched on? That there are, I think, even more than that. But the ones they mentioned.
It's it's so different from when Jim was playing Little League. Obviously, he doesn't have a child that he's coaching, but when he was playing Little League to what's going on today, it's a very dichotomy of a little more encouragement today and a little bit more, I don't know, discouragement in the 70s and 80s when Jim was possibly playing. But yeah, he had a great story of how he grounded into a double play to end a game because he thought the ball was foul and he didn't run. And then in the championship game, I think he struck out, or it was a strikeout, throw him out kind of situation, and it was a double play. And it just, he had no luck in there. But he also, even when he was out in the field, the coach had some issues with him. Do you remember those?
Yes, one was he was spinning around in the outfield, and I believe the coach yelled to him in front of all the players and parents that you look like a ballerina or something to that effect. Where he called him a ballerina.
He called him a ballerina, which you couldn't do today. And of course, Travis and Sam jumped on there, going, "Well, in your future lifestyle, he's not too far off." So You got to
Exactly.
embrace that a little bit. Yeah, they really had a great time talking about those old days when Jim was in there. And he's like, "What team were you on?" Well, just like Jim, we didn't have teams back then. We were sponsored by a local hardware store or a lighting store. I think Jim was I can't even glass company. I think was Jim was. Well, here's my picture of my team back in the late 70s and the 80s. We were Gem Pharmacy. We're sponsored by a pharmacy. Horrible uniforms. I'm a complete dork. I don't know how to wear my hat. I have weird hair. It was a nightmare playing ball in the 70s for these sponsored teams. A little different today.
Yeah, Arlie, all the kids are and my daughter's playing softball in second grade too. All the kids are, and I love this because I'm a Sox fan. They're all Sox. They're all like
Yeah.
purple, blue. I love how the Cubs aren't getting any love. The Cubs are way better than the Sox right now. But you got the sponsor on the back, and maybe the best one is the big pizza place out here is Lido's.
Yeah.
Lido's
They
Pizza.
talked about not Sam. Not Sam should sponsor a team. And then they
That's
really got
true.
into it.
That's
They got
true.
into it deep where they
I
said
mean, that's
not
great. And
Sam.
then everyone's advertising for the whole little community there. Everyone's
Exactly.
asking about it. I agree.
And then
Um,
they got into a little bit of it where not Sam should sponsor not his son's team, but the other team, a more successful team. And Sam was like, "Yeah, I gotta go over and watch my
right.
team play." No, not one that my son's on.
Right. And speaking of success and Sam's coaching success, Travis pointed out how funny it would be if Sam got fired. Like if all the parents got together, be like, look, you're just not cutting it. And obviously that was music to Jim's ears, and he ran with that
Of course.
as well. Very funny. If it was done in like a very kind of shameful way in front of all the parents and children, I don't know if there'd be anything better, a better break this year on the show.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, just the visual in your head of Sam getting the boot, if you will, would be great.
Absolutely. And we heard more about somebody Jim lives with. And I mean, I don't, it's just a thing where as soon as you hear that phrase, your ears just perk up because you know exactly who he's talking about. There's one person he lives with. It would be his lawful wife. And this time she, took an edible and did something. What was that?
Well, it turns out that she was concerned about where all the candy went that she had the night before. And Jim goes, "You ate it." She ate all the candy because of the condition she was in and then woke up with a little tummy ache. So it's not surprising that that can happen, right?
It's not surprising. And this stuff just endears me. She was so great on our show. This stuff endears me to Nikki more. Nikki, we see how she looks, very glamorous, and she sits around. She does other things, but per Jim's account, a lot of times she sits around playing video games, and then at night she's taking edible and eat candy. Like she's killing it. I love what Nikki is doing. And
And
then
then
she wants to. She's encouraging Jim to have some people over too.
right, and then Jim, came back with, "Thank God I'll be dead by the time she gets fat." just,
Amazing,
just
absolutely
amazing.
amazing. Norton line. I love that one.
Hey, before we get too far away from the Nortons and in the Sam Roberts in their lives, let's talk a little bit, if we could, about how when they're telling stories that we kind of discovered something about Travis, him being back behind the wheel and kind of driving it. I think we noticed that Travis has, I think, a new job of steering the guys back to a discussion, keeping the show moving forward when they kind of go off on a tangent. I think they're talking about, what we were just talking about, Little League and the generations of the millennials and the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs. And you saw Travis kind of steer them back and keep them on track because I think sometimes they lose their way and go over breaks that we've heard before. What do you think?
Yeah, it might be something that he's done before. We just didn't recognize. Maybe this was a more obvious time. Because a lot of times we always talk about how good he is when he chimes in on air. A lot of times he might be doing that, but we're just listening to him thinking, "Oh, Travis is good at talking on air." So maybe it is new. Maybe there's a more concerted effort, or maybe it's something that just kind of been doing like under wraps. I'm not sure honestly,
Yeah.
but he did do that this
Well,
time.
I've had frustrations in the past, and it's not any frustration. I'm listening to a show I love, and I'm doing a podcast about a show I love, so it's not too much of a frustration. But I do. They tend to talk about things they talked about recently, or last week, or last
Yeah,
year. Like we're doing that break again, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
think there might be a conscious effort to kind of okay, let's get the train back on the track, even though this train rarely has stops already on it. Maybe they know in the future where they want to what they want to talk about,
Yeah.
but it's not something that is laid out with a hard rundown.
No, he definitely did that in the previous week with all the streamer talk. Like he kept going, God, we already talked. That was
Yes,
not as subtle, but it was very funny how he was handling
yes,
that. So I agree with
yes.
that one for sure. Speaking of Sam and his family from earlier, it's I was impressed. I was impressed and good on Sam. Has his kid doing it doesn't sound like it's being forced either. Has his kid doing wrestling and taekwondo? I mean, those are fantastic ways to teach a kid, keep a kid active, teach him discipline, self-defense. So good on Sammy there. I love that. And then there was some talk about, it can't just be a nice thing. We have to turn this into some kind of
We can't have
street
nice things.
violence altercation. What does Travis want to happen with these fighting disciplines with Sam's son?
Well, obviously Sam son is training and becoming stronger and smarter, but we also know that Jim is training. So maybe he wants to, pair them together in an exhibition and let Sam's son really, give Jim the business and see if, Jim could put in a submission hold where he might like poop his pants or something like that. Who knows?
I would just hope that it's not too soon after Jim gets off a plane. I hope he has his underwear on.
Yes, we know.
He comes off. That would traumatize the poor. Let's call him Sammy Jr. because we
Or
know.
Is it Edgar? Is that the name for
I think it is.
little
Baby. I think
little
it is.
Edgar? Yeah,
Is dry mouth.
there you go.
Um, Speaking of Norton characters, Jim, this happened one other time, right? Did he miss the
Close to
train?
it. Yeah, he was close to it, and he was telling. I mean, okay, let me just stop for 1 second. We know in the back of Jim's head, anytime that he's going to miss a train or when he was on the cruise, he's thinking of Sam enjoying that part,
Yes,
right? That
absolutely.
story. And
Yeah,
then on the other side, anytime that Sam is enjoying a movie that Jim thinks is stupid or anything like that, it's in the back of those guys' head. Like when Travis went to the his daughter's track meet, and the name of the school was right there in Travis's head because of Jim, and he couldn't forget it. So they always have this, in the back of their mind, worry about somebody ruining something. So yes, Jim did miss the train. He's taking the subway more on Tuesday. Tell us a little bit more about that.
well, the guys started fantasizing about like what else could happen to Jim on the train. What was it if he loses his wallet or like something gets stuck in the train door? Wasn't that
Right.
kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, it was because Jim has this great fear of, when you stick your hand in to stop the doors from closing in, let's say, an elevator or a train. He says, you shouldn't do that. You're going to get your hand ripped off. I've seen it many times. And Travis like, where? How many times? Yeah, maybe once or twice in the last 10 years, but not many times as people are taking those modes of transportation. But yeah, so there's a big scare. So they fantasize about Jim, getting his hand, in the thing and dropping his phone inside the car as it pulls away. So then his phone is going down the train line without Jim. Just fun things about that. And then they got a little bit more morbid, I think.
I think when he said I've seen that many times, I knew right away that Jim is up at night watching these horrific videos of like elevator accidents, train accidents,
Yes.
escalators with people. I just knew it got into his rotation of disturbing things to watch. I
Right.
love that Travis said like when Jim was talking about how concerned he is about this happening. I think you say like kids should be aware. Travis like, what do you want? What do you want? Like a dare program for these?
Kids, I'd like to talk to you today about escalator safety and how it can affect you. Yeah, I just
And
think that's
honestly,
hilarious.
that's not like we teach kids safety things anyways. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like those things scare. I remember one time we were in Washington D.C. On vacation, and the elevator, no injury or getting stuck or anything. It just closed in front of my dad when we were already in the elevator. The rest of the family, my mom was in there,
Yeah.
but I remember I was young. It's probably like in preschool. I just felt like I was never gonna see my dad again. I remember like panicking and like
Oh, that's
being
crazy.
scared of elevators after that for a little bit.
So
So
here's my version of that. Your
yeah,
garage door, right? Your
that's
garage door
that's
is
scary.
spring loaded. So if it breaks and you're trying to fix it, whatever, man, you can really get hurt. That thing can throw you. They're spring loaded. So there's danger there. So there's many, dangers in the domestic world. And now that Jim's more domesticated, he must be aware of them and he must make children aware of them.
He should be aware of all those things. Speaking of awareness, the gentleman who was our first guest and has a special place in our hearts had an interesting spelling of a show that a caller called to talk about, and the way he brought it to the table was as the bonfire.
Poor
Uh,
Troy. I mean,
Poor Troy,
hilarious.
because Sam's going at him right away after he makes that kind of folly.
He's trying to do the best he can as fast as he can. And may
So,
I add, I didn't like this Sam beating up on Troy. I thought it was funny, but of course,
of course,
I am a huge Troy supporter. I mean, my goodness, he was so good. He did a two-parter, and one of the episodes I think is our highest, viewed episode
yeah.
with Troy. So I mean, he's great. And we DM back and forth every once in a while about music and stuff. So I'm in Troy's court. Sometimes you slip a D in where it isn't expected. Slip a D in. See what I did there? You slip a D in bond fire instead of bonfire.
I thought you were talking about your DMs.
Yeah. Well, you
Uh,
slip it. That could do.
uh, and Travis, Jim always says appreciates those also. A different kind of color though.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of Jim, thanks. And he said this before, and you can tell how much at least Sam and Travis disagree with him. That anytime Terrence Howard comes up with his own kind of math or periodic table like he just did on Rogan, uh, Jim says obviously he's wrong, but you have to be smart to come up with that kind of system. I think it took him a second and he just ran with. I don't think you have to be smart. I think he's just saying nonsense, and you can say nonsense. You can think about nonsense you're going to say, but still nonsense. Is that your school of thought?
Yeah. I mean, I think they mentioned that he's probably well read. He's probably read a lot of stuff, but what is he reading? Could be
His
fantasy
own
stuff.
stuff. He made it up.
He's spewing these things that are just kind of odd. He's I don't know his mental state, but it seems like he's virgining on some of that nutso stuff. And he just had some weird takes with Rogan about, how he could, hear and remember and think about things before he was born when he was in his mother's womb, among other
That was
things.
the crazy
So,
one.
crazy.
Rogan let him like talk too,
Sure.
and just from the clips that they played on the show. Like I'd have a hard time like
It's
not
like,
not
what?
going at them a little bit with
Yeah.
that nonsense.
Yeah.
Um, Transitioning here, and I didn't like. I noticed him chiming in and helping the show the other days. For some reason, maybe it is my own kind of workload that day. I didn't realize Tefft was out Wednesday. So was that
Yeah.
noticeable to you?
It was noticeable because they were leaning on, on Troy a lot more, and we know what happens when you lean on Troy.
But I also love it.
I mean,
Also
I
love
love it too. I loved it too. But yeah, so they're leaning on Troy more. And unfortunately, I think we did find out a little later that Travis's dog did pass away.
Oh
And that's
yeah.
a second one.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
condolences.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I got a 13-year-old dog here that can barely move around, and we
Yeah.
thought we were going to lose him around December. So yeah, it's a tough thing. You get really attached to these guys. So yeah, that's why Travis was out on Wednesday. And it appears that, and then the guys were out on Thursday, so we might not have some new Jim and Sam for a while. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's unfortunate when anyone is missing from our core group.
of course. Yeah, and so sorry to Travis and his family. That is a tough one. I haven't had a dog since I was a little kid, but I know it's like a family member. So our
Yeah.
best to the Tefft fam. Speaking of families, this time Jim did not blame Nikki when he forgot his ID later in the week, but he did blame the lottery, the New York lottery. He was upset, wasn't he, Chris, that he didn't win?
Yes. Jim can live comfortably, as I talked about, but inside Jim is still this little poor kid, I think. He just has these high hopes of winning the lottery or, taking the subway instead of driving, to save $10 this week. So yeah, he played the lottery, and I don't know how that, works into him not having his ID. I don't think they ever really got into it, but that's where his head was at. But they had a nice lottery talk, and if Jim did win, he had some ideas of what would happen. Do you remember those?
Um, I'm trying to think. What did he do?
He probably thinks that maybe he would, Nikki would probably get
Oh,
pushed down the stairs.
that's right. I was thinking, what do you do with the money? But he had a plan right away. What do you do with his spouse?
He already alluded to that he's going to be dead before she's fat, thank God. But if he does get the money, she might have an accident. He's kidding, of course, but yeah,
Yes.
very funny.
Yes, very funny. And he had a dream that he went into some detail about this week. And what he came up with in this dream is a million times more brilliant than anything Terrence Howard will ever say. Jim dreamt of a place called the Autograph House. His brain, man, I'm honestly fascinated. I think it's a brilliant idea. As someone who collects some memorabilia and likes to get a signature every now and then, he had this dream where there was a house called the Autograph House, and famous people are signing autographs there. I think it's brilliant, just his dream. And he was not allowed in, didn't get an invitation, but
But
Dave
Attell
Attell
did.
did.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. I like this. I like this now that because we always think about how Jim has low self-esteem, right? Because he's so brilliant, and it almost seems like he won't fully give himself credit sometimes for how brilliant he is and what a great guy he is. This in this dream though, because Attell gets in and he doesn't, it's kind of like, oh hey, like I like that he's kind of almost maybe he's seen himself as equal footing in some regards to David Attell. To have that, oh, I didn't get in, but he did, and he should. He's a legend as well. So I kind of like
Yeah.
that.
First of all, Jim's imagination, first to remember the dream, but also on the name of the house, Autograph House. I mean, it's just
I love it.
perfect.
I love
It's
it.
just so yeah, celebrities actually I think live there too. They live there and you come by as, Joe Schmoes and you get your autographs from the celebrities that live there. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah, he did put himself with Dave and Dave's one of his friends. So
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
there's also this like my friends are succeeding and I'm not. And we already kind of talked about, Jim's what is that syndrome where the
Imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome a little bit where you're not worthy of these things that others are and he really is, we know that,
Yeah.
and so he has that in the back of his mind. And so this whole week kind of, and we'll talk about it a little later, really got into Jim's psyche, and Sam kind of broke it down too about how Jim has some of these things that, like, he's still, like I just said, he's still that little boy, that poor boy, maybe abused boy that isn't get to do the things that he deserves to do. And I think that's in the back of his mind. So this is where your psyche comes in with your dream. Thank God it was funny for us and not something extremely disturbing.
I'll tell you guys right. This is a reason for everyone to check out an upcoming interview I have. It'll be in Forbes and on YouTube. I'm going to interview because there's another season of Golden Auctions on Netflix. The biggest memorabilia collector, company owner ever, Ken Golden, and I'm going to ask him what he thinks of my friend's idea
I
of
love
the
it.
autograph house.
I think it's great, man. Taking stuff from Jim and Sam and pitching it in a
Yes,
different way. That's
I'm
your,
going to ask him.
that's
I
your
will.
gift. Your gift is to take the craziness that we listen to and love so much and bring it into the real world where people that know, the people that don't know will be like, yeah, okay, whatever. This guy's just
Crossover.
talking about something weird. Great crossover,
Make
brother.
it crossover. And let's get to interviews from the show that happened this week. You're always a lot better at breaking down the guests than I am, but we had Mike Cannon, Soul Joe. Soul Joel's last name is Richardson, right?
Let me think here. I have
Joel
it in my
Richardson.
notes. It's so Joel Richardson. Yeah, I think you're right.
And Rachel Feinstein and Kim Congdon. And what did you kind of make of everybody, Chris?
Yeah, it was a busy week of guests. So let's just break down what each one brought to the table, and then we'll kind of get into it a little bit more. Cannon came in and he talked about and I think he played here with the Bulls or maybe the Nuggets. It was Brian Scalabrine. I think that might have been a Bulls player that didn't play that much and was
Yeah.
one of the bench guys, the 10th, 11th guy, whatever that is, and how he never played that much. And he had a good point. This guy said, "Yeah, I'm closer to LeBron than all you haters are to me."
Right.
Meaning, I have a lot more talent. I'm an NBA,
Yeah.
a
NBA player.
player, and Cannon feels the same way about himself because he plays basketball in college, and so he had some really funny. They broke down some of these videos that he did. He was playing in a church league or something like that,
Yeah.
and just getting killed, and
Yeah.
that was really funny. But the big thing that he brought up, and I feel bad for Soul Joel because it ate into. They both are on at the same time. Ate into his kind of interview was this accident. He was in a really bad car accident. And I think he said Batavia, and I'm pretty sure it's our Batavia, right? Was he out here in
Yeah. So
Illinois?
he was at, I actually looked it up. He was at the Comedy Vault in Batavia.
So our Batavia then, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so really bad car accident. I mean, the car rolled over. I mean, thank God everything was fine. I think he hurt his hand or broke his hand, but that was just a really scary, scary situation. And then Soul Joel is a unique guy. He's writing a new book with the help from somebody named Lou. I don't know who Lou was, but this, she was helpful. I didn't get much
Yes.
of her because, we did talk a lot about Mike on
Yeah.
that.
She was on the show too. She kind of like maybe like a ghostwriter or
Yeah,
co-author of the book.
perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. But yeah, I mean, he owns a club in New Jersey, and then I guess a lot of the comics did this outdoor club that
Yeah.
he had
Yeah.
during the pandemic, and a lot of them credit him for helping out and getting them a place to go. So I thought that was awesome. We had Rachel Feinstein on that she talked about Troy's legendary status with the guys. It was very funny, and she had a weird role playing game when she was like 12 that was just disturbing a little bit. So her and Jim got along well. And then she has a new special called Big Guy that is out on Netflix that everybody seems to think is really good. And then Kim Congdon, she was there a lot, man. She had a lot of things. They talked about Florida, they talked about alligators and growing up in that area. And then she said that she's actually Kimmy Madison instead of Billy Madison, where she thinks that she
Right.
needs to go back through school and get educated again because she doesn't think she'll be able to do it. But then the best part, and one of my favorite breaks right up there with the autograph house, was when they were talking about the autism test that she took. She
Yeah,
took an
yeah.
autism test and tested, on the spectrum. And they did the test live, and Jim and Sam answered these questions. This is where Sam kind of breaks down Jim a little bit more, like I talked about. And thank God for Jim, even though we think maybe there could be a little bit more. He didn't test as high as Kim. So, and then Kim wrote some jokes for the Tom Brady roast for Nikki Glazer. So she had a really busy week and it was really, really interesting. So for me, my favorite guest, I'm going to go with Kim because she brought something to the table with this autism test that I thought was really enjoyable. And she's funny and kind of raw. So yeah, I liked it. How about you?
I agree. Kim's mine as well, and that those things you said that really made me enjoy her. The test, bringing the test to the show and testing the guys, and hearing about the roast. Jim and Sam were giving opinions and not asking her like what, or talking about news of the roast and not asking her what really happened. I think they could have done that.
Yeah.
Um, Not to be too critical of them. And some stuff's come out we kind of already know, but also she had these amazing stories about alligators in Florida too. Growing up in Florida and being like someone's mom was drunk and brought them and told them to go in. Like she had these
Yeah.
crazy alligator stories. So
Let's talk
yeah,
about
she's
the
my favorite.
I'm sorry, let's talk about the Tom Brady thing a little bit too, because I thought that same way. It's like, why aren't they getting into this a little bit more about
Yeah, she was there. Or
the
yeah, she was
process?
there. She
She
was
was
there and
there
wrote for it. Yeah.
and wrote for it, and I think we would enjoy learning more about the process, but maybe there's this, unwritten thing that we're not going to talk about that, today because there's, it's behind the scenes. Sometimes they don't pull that curtain back too far for all of us.
Yeah, I don't I think that I think from what comics said, it sounded like Tom Brady's like said these things. That's the thing I want to hear someone on the show say, like these things he said don't mention. And that's what's I think what's his name? Um the comic who really helps everybody with their stuff online that has a podcast.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll think of it later. Anyways, he was one of the roasters, but he said like, yeah, all these were a no go, and people went there. I kind of want to hear from more people if that, because usually people stay away from when whoever's getting roasted says don't go there. They don't.
Right.
They're not allowed to. Everyone went at him for everything. So
Yeah, I wonder if too Kim's not going to talk about this because she's not huge, she's successful, and she doesn't want to lose this
Andrew
gig.
Schultz, sorry, Andrew Schultz.
Andrew Schultz, you're right, right. So Kim doesn't want to lose this gig. None of these guys want to lose a gig, so they don't know where the line is of what they can or can't talk about. So they tend not to talk about too much, even though we think Kim shared a lot. I mean, she said
Oh,
she
she's
said
great.
that she got maybe a piece of glass in her eye from when Gronk slammed down the shot glass. She was hoping to get some
That's
of
a
that
funny
Gronk
story.
money, but it didn't happen. So
One more thing with the guests too.
sure,
Of course, I'm not trying to kick a guy while he's down. Of course, thank God Mike Cannon's okay. That kind of thing can traumatize you, being in that kind of accident. And I think maybe I think the opener was with him too, maybe. So
yeah,
glad everyone's okay. But there also was a lot of basketball talk, a lot
yeah,
of weighing in on things. We hear Mike Cannon a lot.
yeah,
Soul Joel got comedians stage time and probably paid a little bit during the pandemic. That was the main thing for comedians in the East Coast. The guy just spent a lot of time on a book.
yeah.
I thought Mike, it was the Mike
Hijacked it.
show, and he
Yep.
should have gave him more of the
I
spotlight.
agree, and I don't know how the timing went with when guests were supposed to arrive, if somebody was late or early or whatever. So it could be blamed on our friend T Dog with the booking and the time
I don't
and all
think
that kind of
so.
stuff.
I think he was in there. I think Soulja was in there for a while with one Mike. When Mike just
Yeah,
kept
no, they're in there
talking.
together, but why are they
Yeah,
there together for the last 20 minutes of the show? Spread that stuff out.
I think it makes
Um,
sense
yeah, it
because you have
does.
Mike's segment, then you have I don't
Yeah,
know.
but they're in there at the same time, pretty much. I mean,
Well, they do that with all their guests, right? A lot of their guests, if the first one doesn't have to run, I think sometimes.
Yeah, they do have it, but I guess there's an underlying thing of where, and Mike knows, Joel and vice versa. So there should have
That,
been a
yeah,
little bit, Mike should have been a little bit more, hey, and Jim was doing the Travis job of steering it back to
yeah, he
Soul
was. He's
Joel.
doing a good
He was
job of it.
doing,
Yeah,
doing that. And
yeah,
yeah, so yeah, Cannon did take over a little bit
I
too
thought so.
much. And You're right.
I
I
thought
agree with
so.
you. Yep.
Getting the line of the week. I got one as usual. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. You know why? I don't have one. This is the
No.
first time I didn't get one because there's things that I laughed at, obviously, but nothing that really stuck out. So maybe yours, I'll share it and go, oh, I should have written that one down. Plus, I thought there was going to be a show on Thursday. So when I went through
That's
all my
true too.
notes and
Yeah.
what I thought about it, I'm like, I don't have one. And this is the first time, and I feel like I should get some demerits or something on the town square for not being able to
It's one
participate
strike.
in.
You get one
Yeah,
town square strike.
yeah, that's right. How about
Uh,
you? Tell me your line of the week.
we also have one already in the show. Thank God I'll be dead before she gets fat. Let's say, I mean,
Yes.
I don't even think mine's going to beat that. Um, Mine was when I love how this like it had nothing to do with it, but somehow they started talking about Sam's PP condition when he was little. And Jim, you hear Travis just like as soon as Jim gets started, Travis doesn't want to steer away. He loves it. He's just like you could just hear the joy in his little chuckles. And Jim was riffing and he goes, uh, he thought it was a town he lived in from Osis.
That's right. That's right. And they did also do the baby talk again
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah. The baby talk Travis loves.
yeah.
Dada, and Jim goes, Dada balloon.
Yeah.
Like there's peeing. So just amazing, amazing stuff with poor
Good
Sam's
stuff.
condition when he was younger. And that is gonna do it. Chris, thank you for everything. Hope you have a great weekend. Oh, you know what? Before I get too carried away here,
Yeah.
I want to tell everyone not to worry while the guys are off. We have a guest, a very special guest that we have been tracking on our show since he started coming on. We've been telling you his stock is rising and rising. We talked about what we thought was his all-time best appearance last week. Let's just say he loves bagels and it will be very pleasing to speak with him. Let's just say that.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to and talking to this gentleman who also may love a rub and tug, but we don't know. He could. But yeah, looking forward to this. It's going to be a great thing to have going on and going up next week. So absolutely. What else you got, brother? Anything?
Oh, thanks for all your help as usual, Chris, and thank you everybody for watching and listening. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Scott, I do have one strike, and I'm going to promise you from my heart to your heart, I'll do a better job next time in the town square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not Doug Bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.